Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here for one of our conference callback webinars. I am super excited about this one because Christine and I were talking, and we believe it's the third time that she's done it, and I finally get to actually enjoy this one. So, yay! We all need a little bit of extra help these days. So, I'm super excited to welcome her and ask her to share all of that genius AI stuff with us. I'm Trinette Marquis, not CalSPRA leader. I just forgot to change my name. And I'm your executive director. I also want to introduce another VIP in the room, Karen Smith, my executive assistant. Say hello.
Hello.
Awesome. Krista, are you here in the room? Is that Krista Fair? I don't see. Okay. I am going to read Christine's official bio, and then I'm gonna add in my own stuff because I just love to give people the respect and admiration they deserve, and Christine deserves a lot. Christine Paik, APR, is the Senior Director of Executive Communications at CSU San Marcos. What a fun job. Where she leads and implements communication strategy for the Office of the President. Previously, you may know Christine through CalSPRA and also her work as the Chief Communications Officer for the Poway Unified School District for nearly 9 years. Christine is passionate about telling stories for a living, which started with a 15-year, 6-time Emmy-winning career in TV news. She doesn't brag about herself enough. She is also a published children's book author of this book right here.
Aw.
The Girl in the Gold Dress. It's a fantastic book, especially for young girls who may be feeling a little bit different than their peers. It is a really wonderful, warm story. And it was released in honor of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month in May 2021. So you can celebrate it again right now. Perfect timing. She loves empowering others through teaching and professional development and has presented on the topic of media relations, video storytelling, AI, and leadership communications for multiple organizations, including NSPRA, CalSPRA, AXA, SSDA, that's a Small School Districts Association, and more. She lives in San Diego with her husband, they're teenagers. Oh my gosh, girl.
One's in
And
college now.
wow. And their 3-year-old Maltese, Mookie. Hopefully we get to see Mookie by the end. And now I just want to add in mine, if you were at this year's CalSPRA Awards Gala, you may have noticed Christine, she is always the best dressed person in the room. I always wait to see what is Christine wearing so that I can just admire the whole picture. And she always has the most fabulous shoes. They're like the heels the size that I can't even imagine wearing, but you do it with so much grace. It's amazing.
Oh my,
She's also someone who has contributed a ton to CalSPRA over the years. All the presentations that you've done, all the ways that you have generously supported. She used to be the regional chair for the San Diego Imperial region. So we're just so grateful to have Christine back in the fold and presenting with us. Without further ado, Christine, I'll let you take it away.
thank you so much, Trinette. And I see so many of my friends in here. Thank you for coming. Hello. What's up? When I was at the Calsper Gala down in San Diego recently, I really felt like it was coming home. I've missed y'all. I'm telling you, this type of camaraderie that Calspera has is not the same in other industries, even if it's public education, it's not the same in higher ed. And so, to be able to be here with you today and you spending this hour with me, I'm so grateful. And please, never hesitate to reach out. Like, my title might have changed, but like my heart for all of y'all and what Casper does has not changed. And so, yeah, as Trinette mentioned, this presentation, it's just like, yeah, probably the third or fourth time I've done it. And so for some of you, it might feel repetitive, but I will tell you, even if I've done this and presented this multiple times, I am using this every single day. So I am using AI every single day in my work. And I learn new things every time. And so if you even come away with like one tip or trick that might have been different from previous times you might have seen this, or you feel empowered to experiment on your own, I consider this a successful presentation. Okay, so a little bit about my new role and why I'm using it so much every single day is so y'all have like very generalist roles. Oftentimes in school PR, you might be the one person who does it all for your school or school district. And so you have to do a little bit of everything. Well, in higher ed, it's much more specialized or compartmentalized. And so my role specifically is executive communications. And so everywhere the president is, says, does, puts out there in the environment, it originates here, and so I do so much writing. I have never written so much. Even when I was a student, I never wrote this much. Even in my master's program, I never wrote this much, or APR. So because of this, I've had to quickly learn how to be smarter and not work harder and really use AI and leverage it as a tool that helps keep me sane, let's just say, with this workload. You already know that AI is everywhere. I keep reading articles of how it's just, how is education going to deal with it? How are we going to, if you're still thinking like, no, AI, it's a passing fad. No, it's here to stay, and it is going to be integrated in everything that we do, including curriculum, both K-12 and higher ed. So our teachers, our faculty, everyone has to get on board. And if you don't learn AI or the basics of it, you will get left behind. Of course, we know in our daily lives, we've got reactive type of AI, right? Where you're asking it to do something like Alexa, predictive AI, like you're always wondering, wait, how did Netflix know what I should watch next, right? And generative AI. And generative AI is what we're going to be talking about today. And that really takes something that has been created or you're creating and helps you generate something new. So, what do AI tools do? This is just a review because it's important to understand how new technology works, right? So it can be used as a learning tool to, explore topics, to brainstorm ideas, maybe quickly learn or brush up on a new concept. What I wouldn't have given if when I was a reporter and I had to interview an expert on something and I knew nothing about this, I could have asked AI to give me a quick Cliff's Note version of that expertise, right? Information assistance, it can provide you with answers, explanations, and suggestions based on the information already out there. And then, of course, data processing, summarizing and analyzing large amounts of data. And so all of these ways is something that used to be done the old-fashioned way by hand or by a human. And these are ways that you can leverage it to increase efficiency. So the way AI works, as I mentioned, like it gathers and learns from what is already out there or what you provided. And so remember, that's not a substitute for a human. And so what it doesn't do well is like it doesn't have true understanding or comprehension. And so sometimes you may get incorrect or even nonsensical responses. But the more you teach it and refine it, the closer it gets to what you need. This is an area where I always warn against is the sensitive content, right? So, if it's learning based on what's out there and what's out there is either inappropriate, biased, or incorrect, then it only knows what it knows from that. Contextual fidelity. And so when you are using prompts and teaching AI and having these conversation and asking it to do things, it needs to you need to do it like in parts or chunks or building blocks. And I'll show you how to do that. Um, it's not great at original content creation, right? So it is creative and you can teach it to be creative and ask it to do things, right? But of course, it's not a replacement for human creativity. Doesn't have critical thinking, real world judgment, right? And it does not substitute for specialized knowledge, right? That we as professional communicators, the nuances, things like that possess. But there are a lot of things it does well. So today we're going to be focusing on using ChatGPT, which is what I primarily work in. I also work in Microsoft Copilot. Some of you may be part of a Microsoft workplace, right? Where it might be built into your, SharePoint or OneDrive or things like that. There's also Google Gemini, formerly known as Bard. There's Perplexity AI and Anthropic. And so really, these are just some platforms for generative AI that you can use and explore. But really, it's much more than just a writing assistant, and it can really go from writing to models and graphs and tables and images, and so the possibilities are endless. Um, I'm just going to share this. You can have a lot of fun with it too, right? So some of you may have seen this trend where you want to be made into an action figure or a doll. And so I uploaded a photo of myself and asked AI to create an image of myself as a Barbie doll with the specific accessories of my current job. And it was really creepy, but really amusing at the same time. And so, just having fun and playing with it and seeing what the possibilities are with AI. One question that I normally get that I want to kind of answer is using AI like ChatGPT plagiarism, right? And so the answer to that really is no, it's not plagiarism. It's a language model designed to provide original responses to users' queries rather than directly copy and pasting from whatever it's learning or trained from. However, the content it generates is based on a bunch of data. So there may be certain areas of text that have similarities to existing content. And that's where your human judgment and all of that come into play, right? Okay, so super basic. I always say, think of ChatGPT as a conversation, right? It only knows what you tell it, and it only knows to do what you tell it to do. But the great thing is if it doesn't get the information right the first time, you give it more information, and the AI model remembers what you told it. So you can build on it to refine the response. So, you've often heard like, oh, it's an iterative process, and that's what that means. So it all starts with a prompt. So what is a prompt? Okay, it's a conversation starter and determining how ChatGPT will respond. So you define the context, nature, and direction of the conversation, and it can be as simple, a super simple query to really asking it to do complex tasks. And so the detail of your prompt and what you ask it to do and providing that context and direction directly influences the quality of the response it gives back to you. And you can provide feedback, tweaks, etc. on the same chat thread. And each new prompt is starting a new conversation. Okay? So here's a sample prompt that you might encounter in your line of work. I need to write an email as a school district superintendent, right? Who you are gives context in your role, responding to a parent who is upset about diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Okay, so who's the audience, right? You just define the audience. Their original email is posted below. So giving it more context or information, you're providing the original email. Ensure the tone is empathetic and respectful. So you can ask for tone and voice and things like that. And then my goal is to emphasize the importance of belonging and ensuring all students see themselves as being welcomed and valued at school. So I put that in there to provide key message things, to anchor the things so that maybe it was thinking of going somewhere else with this based on what it knows, but this is further refining that. Okay, so the anatomy of that prompt, again, context, you describe the scenario, right? Who you are, who's sending it, what you want it to do. You want it to write a response email, right? The audience, a person, a parent upset about DEI. Style, you talked about empathy, etc. You can also include parameters, as you well know probably already, such as length, number of paragraphs. This especially comes in handy during awards season when you're limited to 500 characters or whatever like that. So that's super helpful. So I'm going to do a quick live demo. I put that prompt into ChatGPT. Okay. I need to write an email as a school district superintendent, etc. And then I pasted the email below. I just made something up based on some emails I've received in the past. I think you'll find that it's pretty accurate or close to the truth, right? Okay. So you can see that it did a pretty good job, right? About with maintaining that tone of empathy and respect. The way it's structured, like you know, finding the superintendent's voice here and assuring, you're affirming the person who sent that to you, but really like, yes, I acknowledge that academics is important, but here's why it's important to us, da 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 da. Now, some of these things you might not feel comfortable including, but that's okay. This ensures that you're not starting from scratch, right? And some of this may resonate, some of it may fit your superintendent's voice. And here's where you're coming in and refining it. And you can plug in what is our mission of our school district, right? What is a phrase that your superintendent always says, okay? But this is a pretty good message, honestly. And I would feel very comfortable working from this. Okay, back to, so one of the complaints that I often myself had when I was first starting out, and also my colleagues like using it, they're like, it never sounds like the person that I'm writing for, or it never sounds like me, right? So the pro tip here, and in terms of like figuring out somebody's voice, is to first ask it to analyze something that you've already written. So this, again, is the part where you're teaching it and providing it with more to work from. So what I do is I'll take something that the superintendent wrote or put out, and I'll say, analyze the writing style from the text below, copy and paste that, and then that'll do that. And then using that same style now, you're telling it what to do. Okay? So that's one way that you'll definitely get closer to mimicking or your boss or your own voice. So you can also utilize other things about that person that are out there. So again, AI is learning about this person. So you can tell it more about who they are. You can paste their LinkedIn profile. You can describe their personality, their likes or dislikes, and this also, again, helps inform a response. So, we all have CBOs in our line of work. Scott is the chief business officer of a school district. He's high in competence, loves direct, brief emails that are to the point. He prefers data and likes research. He does not use emojis or exclamation points. Today, I need to draft an email to him about blank, right? So some of you who do study in communication styles, this is important, right? When if you're communicating, especially difficult things, you want to communicate in the language that the person who's receiving it understands and relates to and responds to. And so I love kind of doing this as an extra way to customize your communications. Really, you can narrow it down based on the person's style, communication style, etc. So remember, I was talking about how ChatGPT can't do all the things all at once. So really, you need to break it up into separate tasks. So one, you don't want it to get too overwhelmed, but you want it to remember what you put in before. And so it's really like breaking up the tasks step by step. So the first thing I had to do is, yes, analyze the following text for writing style. So then you paste something that's already been written. And so then the response I got was, oh, yes, well, this has a formal yet approachable tone, uses real life examples, personal stories, and experiences. The main themes are authenticity, passion, balance, Um, so it will analyze it. So once it's analyzed it, the next thing you ask it to do, using the same style, compose a persuasive letter acting as a school principal to parents explaining the importance of school attendance, for September, right? School attendance month. Include tips on how parents can help students come to school every day and time. Now, it's still going to use this writing style that it just analyzes. Now it has a new step to do. So this is what it gave, right? This is a school principal talking about the importance of attendance. It's pretty good. And so this starts about the value of school every day. If you have a attendance campaign, you can plug in whatever, campaign, tagline there is or whatever you want. There's tips. I ask for tips, right? And really kind of this message of a shared responsibility. Again, great start, and you can customize it. Now, we all know like it's not a one and done. As a school comms person, you're asked to not just create the flyer, not just write the email, but fill in the blank, right? So from the same topic, you can say, now create an FAQ for parents that I can post on my website based on the above letter. Okay, so now it's converted the format, right, without you having to do a single thing to an FAQ, right? Which you can then review and then post on your website. Okay, so now you've got the FAQ down. Create 5 fun social media posts based on the above FAQ. You can tell it to use emojis, hashtags, whatever. You can ask it for suggestions for accompanying photos or graphics, right? So then it put out this. Now, we wouldn't necessarily use all of these, but again, you're not starting from scratch, right? I don't know about clock in to unlock success, but maybe you might, you might use like, in the classroom today, brighter future tomorrow. Like, again, this is just providing you ideas. And so you're not starting from scratch, and you got multiple pieces of communications done within minutes. Okay. So what would have taken you, you know, 2 hours to brainstorm, 5 ideas, is really, that's the efficiency here. So AI, we talked about how it's always learning. So it loves feedback. You can then say, okay, can you make that friendlier in tone? Or can you please add more specifics or examples of fill in the blank? Or this is too long and wordy. Can you please make it more concise? You can even just say, make it better. And sometimes it will make it better and ask you if you like this version. By the way, when I first started, I'm very polite in my communications. And so I was asking ChatGPT, please, and thank you, and oh, thank you, but no. And so I read this really funny article on how many people waste words on being polite to ChatGPT. So just know that you don't have to be polite. It will still do what you want it to do. It won't think you're rude or give you a bad answer because you weren't nice to it. Uh, okay, so knowing this and knowing the basic anatomy of a prompt, there are endless possibilities, right, in your line of work, right? So some of you may do board meeting briefs, right? You could upload a video of the board meeting and ask it to write a summary for the superintendent, outlining the key points and board actions from the meeting based on either the video itself or the transcription. You can ask it to create the content for your presentation slides based on a reading. You can generate job interview questions based on your existing job description that you have for that comm specialist you're trying to hire. You can also use it in translation, but again, even though it's better than like Google Translate, I would, obviously have somebody who's fluent review that. I use it to brainstorm all the time. I also use it to create video scripts, etc. And so really the possibilities are endless. So some of the things that really, as we become more strategic communicators and are trying to create communications plans, go through the RPI process. Um, you know, I've really loved generative AI in terms of strategic communication planning. And so here's an example of a 4-step thing that you could try, right? So hey, we got to get more butts in seats for TK. Can you, comms, all knowing guru, create a communication plan for TK enrollment? And you're like, yeah. And then you're like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Right. And so, again, I'm just going to copy and put that prompt here. Again, this is a totally unrelated topic. So you're going to start a new chat. Okay. So, but I'm going to give it a little more context, right? I am a school communications and PR expert for a suburban K through 12 school district in California. We have low awareness about our expanded TK programs. Okay, what are 3 measurable objectives for strategic communications in a TK enrollment campaign? Okay. Okay. So it just threw out something because it really isn't going off of much knowledge, right? These are big goals, but they're measurable. So you could say, that's not realistic, 30% increase in web traffic, but what if we did a 10% increase? That's doable. Or, hey, 25% is not doable. So, but it gives you a place to start, okay? So then, what are the key characteristics of the target audience for the families of transitional kindergarten students? Okay, so you could put that in. But at the bottom, what it does oftentimes is it'll prompt you for the next step. So maybe if you say, oh, Well, I haven't gotten to audience yet. Sure, sure. What would be a simple sample messaging for tactics? So yes, I'd like to see I'd like to see sample key messaging or tactics aligned. Okay. So now it's giving you some potential things, right? Aligned with each objective. So TK enrollment inquiries gives you some key messages, tactics. Some of these are good, and you could really take this and customize your own plan as it fits. Okay. Now it's asking if you want a simple one-page flyer. We all know there's no such thing as a simple flyer. How many people have to see this flyer before it gets approved? uh, anyway, so that's just how one way that's a great way to help you in your strategic comms planning, especially those of you who are APRs or thinking of becoming APRs. As you approach your comms more strategically, you'll want to go through each of these steps, right? Another way are, social media campaigns. Like, ain't nobody got time to be like an influencer or whatever. If you're just trying to okay, back to school, give me 10 ideas for a school district social media campaign aimed at, what's your hashtag we belong here. Okay. So now, you can then continue to have these conversations. Oh, I like that idea. Give me 5 ideas to you. You can also say, I don't like these. Give me 5 more. Or you can ask it for alliteration. You can ask it to be more catchy. You can ask it to be more attention grabbing, fill in the blank. And then ask it for captions, post ideas. I will tell you, there's probably not a single influencer out there that doesn't use um, generative AI to help them generate those daily posts. Because if you guys do social media for your district, it's a beast. And to feed that beast, it is exhausting. And so please, please, please leverage this for any of your social media needs. Event planning. How many of you guys do events in your line of work? Maybe, yeah, I see a lot of hands. So, I came into my role at Poway not having done much event planning. I didn't know where to start. So, I was like, okay, well, this is another way you could really use the knowledge that's out there to help you because if you've never planned an event before, how are you supposed to know the steps you need to take, right? Okay, so I am a school PR and communications person for a TK through 12 school district. We have an annual Employee of the Year event. It's what context can we give it? It's a cocktail and awards ceremony format, right? Can you help me create a detailed checklist, right? It gives you a timeline, which is great, as well as the checklist. So things you might not have thought about, budget, you know, oh yeah, the decor, oh yeah, photography, oh, maybe you want to have a planning committee, venue selection, honorary coordination, registration and invitation. Man, suddenly you're an expert. Or if you're not an expert, you can at least pretend to be. And so I found this element super helpful as well. And, once you have a theme, then you can use it to think about oh, help me write the invitation, help me write the event script, et cetera, et cetera. Um, if you have to market the event, if you have to make a video, again, it's only limited by your imagination. Of course, we've all used it, I'm thinking, to correct our grammar, sentence structure, make it sound better, professional, organize your thoughts more effectively. I think this is where many people are most comfortable with it because we have been really, Grammarly has been in our lives for a long time. And my kids grew up using AI as a writing improver, right? But to me, that's like, you know, just the ABCs of AI. And really, as you see, the possibilities are so much more. We talked about FAQs, we talked about captions for social media, we talked about creating plans, translating, summarizing big chunks of information. So recently, for an example, I had to conduct a review of a on-campus event and then a subsequent protest, and there was like a clash, right? And so we, as a critical issues team, had to conduct a review based on interviews of people who attended and participated. Okay, you can imagine that was a lot of raw data that I was like, I don't have time to like sort through this manually. So I removed specific names or any confidential pieces, and then I uploaded it and asked it to create an event summary with key action items and learnings that I could bring back to the committee. So that was a huge lifesaver in terms of summarization and big data. Of course, your meetings, survey questions, etc. So here's some other pro tips that I've kind of since picked up um, from, that I was like, oh, I didn't know it could do that. So I saw that in this Zoom, somebody had an AI note taker or something like that. So you can upload video from your last Zoom meeting if it was recorded to get feedback from AI on how to make the meeting better, more productive, better format. Give me an agenda for next time, right? It's about kind of anticipating and learning from whatever that was. I love this one, and I've used it several times for this as well. You can act out and role play for challenging conversations. And so, you know, hey, help me role play this scenario. I'm a underpaid school PR professional, and I'm going to be asking my superintendent for a raise, even in tight budget times. You know, hey, help me, um, you know, lead this reorganization of my department, and we're going to have some layoffs, right? Help me have this conversation with a challenging parent who fill in the blank. Um, and it really helps you take some of the emotion out of it and really think in thoughtful, strategic ways. Something I like to do is like give it like, okay, I really want to bring up this point and this point, so make sure those are included in this conversation. So you can ask AI to answer more like a human. You just tell it like, please answer. Oh, sorry. You don't have to say please. Answer in a natural, human-like manner. You can also ask that it leave specific words out. So one of the things that like when it gets really flowery or how do you say, like a little robotic sounding, you can say, okay, you please don't use the word blank because I would never say that, and it takes that feedback and really adjusts. You can also ask it to, and I'm not saying that it will always, but you can ask that the answer, whatever it is unbiased or does not rely on stereotypes. Um, I've had mixed success on that one. Okay, so I talked about how like this is really just scratching the surface. And so if you're really interested in leveraging this to maximum, effectiveness, learn more. Like this course, this today's presentation is just scratching the surface. So one thing I would recommend is Coursera has last I checked, it was a free course and it was prompt engineering. So all the things that I've been talking about today is how to write prompts to get ChatGPT to do what you want it to do. And so you can become a prompt engineering expert, and go there and learn how to master some of these patterns, techniques, and approaches to really maximize and get the most out of generative AI. One of the things that I'm really excited about that I'm trying to see if I can figure out is like when it comes to um, automatic workflows. So, can I get it so that if I get an email in my inbox that needs a response, can I get the AI to generate a draft without me telling it to so that I can, you know, at the end of the day or the beginning of the day just review what was already generated, so removing that one extra step. Like, so these are the things that I'm like wondering, and like what are the possibilities to further automate our workflows, right? So we can spend more time, you know doing what we do as opposed to some of the more um, mundane things. So a note on accuracy, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, but doesn't always get it right. And you cannot just copy and paste a ChatGPT response, right? You have to put your eyes on it. Think of it as like an intern that you're training, right? It really wants to do it right. It really wants to please you, but it doesn't always get it right because it doesn't know all the things that you know. So I think that would be the best comparison in terms of like the accuracy and reliability. Of course, digital systems and really fact checking sources. Sometimes it'll hallucinate and make up information when it doesn't know something. So you really have to watch for that. And then leaning on your own expertise as you experiment, and you will always need to refine the responses, um, and privacy. Do not put sensitive or private information into AI. Students' names, especially sensitive emails, you can always make it generic with the blank. And so there's no need to put that out there because then it becomes part of the machine's learning. So I wanted to leave time for questions, scenarios, anything like that. Um, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to just raise your hand, we can do it that way too. But yeah, happy to answer questions or talk through potential or possibilities and all of that.
I have a question for you, Christine. I noticed that you talked about having AI go back and moderate tone. Have you ever used it to have it review and maybe review for literacy rates, depending on who your
Hmm.
audience is?
Um, yes. So oftentimes, like, we've heard some of these like general rules of thumb, right? Fifth grade reading level or eighth grade reading level. You can do that as well. You can say, you know, hey, this communication's a little too, esoteric or something, or can you adjust the language for an eighth grade reading level, but maintain a respectful tone or an empathetic tone because the audience is parents or something like that. You can definitely adjust.
There's a question from Lori Miles. Any tips on eliminating hyperbole?
Oh, I think you could just say it. I've said when I'm refining things, I have said like this language is over the top. Like, please take out some of these like superlatives and hyperbole and whatever. And it does. Like, again, it really like it's really open to constructive criticism and feedback. And so their first its first go at it, you're not going to love it necessarily. But I will say one thing you want to do, and I should have not thought that this was a given. So if you're using it on a regular basis, I would recommend, and I think you have to, I'm not sure, you want to log in via your account so that as you're creating and refining, it's learning attached to your profile so that if you're coming back to it time and time again and you're asking it to write similar things or for a similar person or the same person, it's continually learning and it's attached to your profile. And so that the communications it's generating for me when I ask it to are getting better and better. And so if it's learned that you don't like hyperbole or you really want to stay in this area of like respect and empathy, it does a better job each time.
Like an intern.
Yes, yes, eager to please. Any other questions?
I will just share an anecdote. Our president-elect Jackie Dillard, I saw an AI presentation that she gave, and she too says please and thank you to the AI. But she says it's because when the robots take over, she wants them to remember that she was nice.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. That's too funny. I'm curious, like maybe a raise of hands, like how many people are using it on a daily basis or at least several times a week?
How about right now during this presentation?
I love you, Nicole. Amazing. That's
No, but
amazing.
seriously, I actually was using it for some ideas for a video, employee appreciation video centered around our theme of be extraordinary this year. And so as you were talking, it got me thinking, and I like had gone on because I'd helped it write an email to our employees and with that same theme. And so then I went back to my thread and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it could help me with some video ideas using students and our board and our superintendent. Brilliant. So thank you. As you were talking, I literally have something to share with my superintendent today. So thank you, girl.
I love that. I love that. And the great thing about the video scripts, it will even like break out like, okay, the superintendent says this,
Yes.
students can say
So
this,
good.
and then the
So
board
good.
member says this, and you're like,
And
amazing.
then it gave me like 3 for the board. I'm like, no, we have 5 board members. And then it broke it all out for that. So amazing. Yeah. So thank you. Cause I wasn't thinking about that piece of it until you've sparked that in me here. So thank
I
you.
love that. I love that. Anyone else have some like really great examples or ideas of how you've leveraged it or used it in your work? Because I bet I could learn something new from you all too. Hi, Edwin. You want to say
Hi,
something?
yeah, I'd like to share. So, I take it anytime I have to do a student-centered Instagram post or social media post, I write down my questions and the answers of the students via my notes app, and then I upload those notes app to create a cohesive social media post. And it's been doing a great job. So it gets the ball rolling and helps with that ideation phase.
I love that, Edwin. Thank you. Kirsten, hi. What were you going to say?
Well, first of all, I was going to say, I think I read the same article about being polite with Chat GPT, and it actually said that it slows it down and it makes it have to work harder.
Okay.
And now it's slowing me down. I've only known this information for a couple of days, but it's hard for me to not say please and thank you because I'm just so polite. Um,
You
but
are
one
polite.
thing, One way that I use it is during award season when I have to get letters of recommendation from multiple people who all say, "Can you get me started on a letter of recommendation?" And so I analyze their style and tone from something else and then have them have Chat GPT start writing letters. And it's so helpful.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Kirsten. And then Nancy in the
Got me.
chat. Nancy in the chat says she uploads press releases so it learns more about my district. That is a great way to continue to teach it so that when you need to come back to it for key messages or key initiatives, it has a frame of reference. Lori, did you have something to add?
I used it to analyze applications for jobs, to summarize their qualifications based on our position statement, and to summarize their experience and also to rank them. And it was interesting, and I asked it to whether it would recommend that we interview. It recommended that we interview everybody, which was not true. So it was an interesting experiment, but I'm realizing now I probably violated some privacy issues there and should have made names blank and things like that. I didn't know enough to do that. So now I know.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm glad. And yes, absolutely. That's a great way to leverage it to really like kind of streamline the HR process, but also look at it from an objective lens, right? Based on qualifications. And yeah, just taking that extra step of removing names would be awesome. Jerry, you use it to generate questions for interviews and write first drafts of press releases. Absolutely. Um, Yes, and you can, Nancy, you can rename the chat so that you can group things together. And so, for example, they'll kind of just name it for you, but you can rename it by clicking on the three dots to help you organize your chats that way. And you can go back to them. You can say, oh, I remember I did this whole thing around, the uh, Employee Appreciation Awards that Nicole mentioned, right? But that was like 3 months ago. But now, for some reason, I need it again because we're going out to honor the next batch of honorees or whatever the situation is. You can go back to that chat, continue, and say, okay, can you work off of the messages above it and continue this theme for blank, right? And so, really going back to your old chats has been something that I've been doing a lot. Um, Paid memberships for Chat GPT. Yeah, so I agree with Lori. I've found that the paid version does give you, I think, higher quality results and the opportunity for collaboration with your team. So that's something you might want to consider. Lori.
Oh, but my hand is still up. Sorry.
Oh, okay, great. And
I
then
forgot to lower it.
oh, no problem. Hi, Zach. Zach says, I've used it a lot to generate social media posts for specific themes of the month. Yeah, every month, from AAPI month right now to, teacher appreciation, principal appreciation, fill in the blank appreciation, really helps schedule content for the whole year, which is a great way to approach your social media strategy instead of like being like, oh my gosh, tomorrow is Black History Month. Like, what do I do? Right. And so, really taking a step back and saying, hey, I'm a K-12 school PR person. I'm planning my social media calendar for the year. Can you please give me some ideas based on, this calendar or these heritage months or whatever, and then take a year-long planning approach. Any other questions?
Christine, I just had one more idea. I use Notebook LM. I don't know if other folks have used that one, but it's really great for uploading really big text documents. And then it will turn it into a podcast for you, a summary, an FAQ, a news release. So I did a session at CSBA and I suggested for lazy board members that if they have a really big board packet, upload that. And
Oh my gosh, that's genius. Yes.
you can listen to it on your way to and from work,
Yeah.
kind of like an audio.
Who put this in? Last name Bolt. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. I'm using Aaliyah. I'm using ChatGPT to draft a guidebook for our district to use to make sure we're following WCAG accessibility guidelines for our website. I love that. That's really smart. That's really smart. So I, gosh, I learned something new today too. The other thing that we didn't even get into this because really this was more the generative AI conversation, but another thing that I really like about some of the AI tools out there are using it's I forgot what it's called, but you can record your screen like walking somebody step by step, and then it'll generate a whole like guidebook based on that. So when you're teaching, social media presentations for staff who are newly, become social media administrators, or website editors, and because normally you'd have to like either record it or transcribe it or write out a step by step for them, but this does it all in one, which I love too. But yeah, that's
That Loom that you use, Christine?
I
Or is that
don't
a
use
machine?
Loom, but that's one I think that you could use for that purpose. Scribe, was it Scribe AI? Yeah. But yeah, I just go forth, and you guys are doing great things already. I learned so many new things, and hopefully you came away with at least one new idea or way to leverage it in your day-to-day work. And I'm gonna put my email in the chat. If you guys have questions or want to bounce things off or just reach out because I miss you guys, that's my email. And hopefully you enjoyed today's presentation.